So, Rev, we also have some breaking news this morning. We talked earlier in the show about USAID, its uncertain fate. We've just confirmed an email went out early this morning to staff saying, do not come in. Headquarters will be closed this morning. You are to work remotely. And Elon Musk is saying in his spaces last night, said that Donald Trump agreed with him to shut down the entire agency. Congress should have a say in there. They've been mute so far. Give us your reaction, though, as we know what good, both strategically and in terms of humanitarian terms, this agency does. Today, it's not open.
Strategically, it is very detrimental to the interests of the country because this aid that we do humanitarian-wise is also goes hand in glove with protecting and securing Americans and the United States, because we need people to see us as a humanitarian country as we try to deal with the fact that China and Russia are making inroads into Africa and other places. To just abruptly cut this off and to in essence get rid of or terminate those that have been doing that work is, in my opinion, not only a misjudgment, it's a cold, calculated play that I don't understand how it serves the interests of the American people. So at one level, you sympathize with those that work at USA, but at another level is, to what end are we saying we're going to cut this off? There's been no problems with them. There's been no questions about their service. So what is the point here?
But Jonathan, can we remind our audience, you said Elon Musk's directive. Elon Musk is a private citizen. He's not elected. He's not appointed. He has not had a background check. He has not been vetted in any way. OK, this is a private citizen that the president signed an executive order. Right. He even put Doge in parentheses. This isn't real. But Elon Musk and his team have now been given access to start to take over and control established government offices, right? When you talk about protecting U.S. interests, who's protecting U.S. interests? Elon Musk has always argued, I go to where the problem is. Well, who are you looking to solve it for? Right. Yourself and your personal interests, or the American people? We have tons of waste in this country. Let's do it. But why aren't the people who are doing it, why haven't they been confirmed? Why don't they have background checks? If they're going to shake things up, let's do it. But let's do it with some level of transparency.
Yep.
Well, and again, as somebody that has literally focused my entire adult life on the national debt, which is at $36 trillion, it's supposed to go up another $20 trillion over the next decade, and understands and has been warning for 30 years now about the debt bomb that will go off, and when it goes off, it'll be bad. I would be the first to talk about the need to get spending under control, but you do it constitutionally. And by the way, going after U.S. aid, this is so preposterous. It's less than 1% of the federal budget. So, John Heilemann, though, you look, following up on what Stephanie just said, and looking at the hatred again, the hatred spewed this weekend from the world's richest man for the United States actually helping the poorest people across the globe, the most destitute people across the globe, and not just because we're good people, but because, as I've said before, Harry Truman made the calculation after World War II and Europe was in ruins. I have to get Herbert Hoover over there, and he needs to organize a humanitarian response, because if we don't do that, the communists will, and they will take over Western Europe as well. They understood that. Now we have China, we have ISIS, we have Al-Qaeda trying to make their way through and establish a foothold all across Africa, all across the Southern Hemisphere. And you have, again, somebody who's not even a government employee basically kicking down the door of the Treasury Department this weekend, kicking down the door of USAID this weekend, sending his people in to have access to classified material that they have no right to have access to that classified material. And it appears to just keep going. And you do wonder, when are the Republican heads of these committees going to step forward and say, can't do that? That's actually my jurisdiction. Get out.
It's a very good question, Joe. And I would say there are a lot of things all built into that question and into the setup here. I mean, there is the Elon Musk of it all, which is, has been one of the most important stories of this new term. The notion, it's not a good look, obviously, in some sense. You wouldn't have thought the world's richest man campaigning to take out USAID in the way that he has been. But, you look at we don't have a head of the FAA right now because the prior head of the FAA decided to step down because Elon Musk was attacking him over things that and demanding his resignation. He is, as Stephanie said, this is not even just a question about transparency. It's a question about accountability. There is no such thing as the Department of Government Efficiency. It does not exist. It has not been created. It is now the head of it, the head of a fictional organization, is now shutting down a long-established and congressionally authorized institution that has the history that you just said with USAID. But your question at the end is the crucial question. If you add up everything that Donald Trump has done since he took office, it amounts to a strategy of subjugating the legislative branch, whether it is the firing of the inspectors general, the purge at the FBI, shutting down the USAID, the discussions about buyout offers for federal employees. You could make a list of 30 things. All of them are about expanding the executive power and essentially saying to Congress, we dare you to assert your institutional prerogative to rein this in, and daring the courts to stop it. And your question, when will committee chairs? I'm not sure they ever will, because one of the questions that's at hand right now is, does Congress want to have its institutional prerogative? Does this Republican Party in the United States Senate and House want to be about a check and balance against the executive, or does it actually want to be, politically and otherwise, subjugated to Donald Trump's agenda? That question is, to a large extent, along with the question of whether the courts will intervene and what will happen if they do, those are like the whole ball of wax here.
All I'll say is this, Mika, is again, everything that happens now, as Jim Vandehei and Mike Allen wrote this morning in Axios, everything that happens in 2025 with a Republican president could happen in 2029 with a Democratic president. I think more to the point, though, when there are all these strategic missteps, when there is the gutting of USAID, an organization, again, that helps us actually collect data on Al-Qaeda, whether it's in the Ivory Coast or across the world. We actually collect data on Al-Qaeda through USAID. We actually get sources on Al-Qaeda and ISIS and others, China, trying to make moves across Africa. There will be blowback. And when that comes, those Republican senators that are sitting back letting this happen will be responsible. It's the same thing, actually, when you look at what's happening at the FBI. Internal purges are going on at the FBI right now. And that's great news for Al-Qaeda. That's great news for ISIS. That's great news to fentanyl drug gangs. That's great news to China. Spies for China, spies for Russia, spies for Iran. That is great news for our enemies. There's no way two ways cut it. Every Republican senator knows this to be the case. Every Republican House member knows this to be the case. If you are focusing your attention on purges at the Pentagon and purges at the FBI, then your enemies are the ones, your foreign enemies are the ones who are celebrating, because they're getting more powerful, because you're taking your eyes off the ball. And by the way, I'll be the first to say, and I've said it, reform at the FBI, reform at the Pentagon, reform at USAID, reform across the government. A great idea. But, one of Elon Musk's close associates said his goal, and the goal of other billionaires that are involved in this, are to strip the government down to its stubs.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of a handful of Republican senators that we have known all over the years that we've met with. Barrasso, Thune, Lindsey Graham, Dave McCormick, Susan Collins. I mean, they know this. They absolutely know this.
Everyone.
100%.
Every last one of them knows this is dangerous. A purge at the FBI is dangerous. If somebody stepped over the line, then yes, deal with those people accordingly. But a wholesale purge there, a wholesale purge at USAID, as John Lemire just said this morning, telling every USAID worker to stay at home, there are ramifications. Hard power, soft power, investigative power. Our enemies are loving this.
Still.